is it being filmed from?
So you got a camera there? Two cameras.
Oh, you know what? Maybe I can just switch sides with you.
Really?
Yes. The camera's over there.
Careful getting off.
Sorry. Only because that's such my profile, which I hate.
I'm not sure if this is up yet. That's on. Let me make sure these are on for you.
I'm not going to need my glasses.
That's on. And perfect test. All right, guys.
Check.
One. It's not too. If you want to try that, it seems low.
I have a mixer.
Oh,
back
cool.
there.
Thanks.
I don't want to bang it out.
Yeah,
because
yeah,
if
yeah.
the feed's back, I'm over here fixing it.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. Is there anything that you'd like me to know for your presentation? Like, I know you're going to be jumping down in the audience. Should we try to pick those shots up or keep it on stage? I know you're going to jump down the audience for like Q&A stuff. Should we try to pick up those questions and answers? Sometimes that becomes difficult with non-release plus things. So we'll try to keep all the action going, all right?
Great. Thank you.
Pretend like there's no microphone and you're talking to me back there. And,
Okay.
Presence will be just fine. All right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Is that right? You have a little earpiece in your ear or something?
Who wrote that? Hi, Amy.
Hi, Amy.
No profanity now.
Hi, Henry.
Oh, what, the mic?
Don't touch anything.
It's on. He's going to control the volume back there.
Can I say something to Facebook people? Hi, welcome everybody from Facebook. We're going to get started shortly. Hang in there with us. You got to go to Lacey's Tapas. They had a great time last
It was
night.
good. Good food.
I just want to welcome everybody. Good morning to the 17th Annual Nature Time Health Fair. How many of you have been to our health fair before? What do you think of this building? Crazy, huh? Excellent. I'm so appreciative of the support. My good friend Karen Howard from the Organic and Natural Health Association has helped me put a lot of this together, and I'm very grateful. Thank you very much.
Wendy.
And excited to welcome Dr. Dana Cohen and Dr. Gio Espinosa here to Syracuse. So please enjoy this interactive, fun, lively talk.
All right.
Thank you very much, Wendy. Organic and Natural Health Association. It's a trade association out of Washington, D.C., and our primary mission in life is to create a new relationship between you and corporations purely for the sake of saving the planet. A shout out to our Facebook streaming fans. We've got people all over the country who are watching the stage today. Send your questions. We'll get them answered as quickly as we can online. Let me just say a little bit before we get started about how we're going to do this. We are going to be interactive and speaking with one another, and then at the end, we'll we'll be able to take your questions. So we'll make sure you keep those in your head. Also, we've got books and products that both Gio and Dana will be speaking about that you can buy at the Nature Time store. So make sure you make a stop there. I'm going to do quick introductions of two of, I think, the most wonderful integrative practitioners I've ever met in my life. Dana Cohen is a nationally renowned internal and an integrative medicine specialist whose multidisciplinary approach has helped treat thousands of patients using a variety of conventional and complementary therapies. She's been in practice for nearly 2 decades, must have started when she was 12, trained under the late Dr. Robert Atkins, as we all remember him. And she has a passion for integrative medicine that stems from her belief that medicine is an art and a patient-centered holistic approach. She's the author of the forthcoming book, Quench, which is all about the science of hydration. So that's something to look forward to and make note of. Dr. Espinosa is an old friend of mine. He's a naturopathic physician and functional medicine doctor, recognized as an authority in urology and men's health. He's been recognized as one of the top 10 health makers for men's health by sharecare.com, and he's the author of the book Thrive, Don't Only Survive. So I'm going to start this off with an interesting concept that I've been playing with in my head for a while. Healthcare in this country has basically changed all of you sitting in the audience and watching on Facebook Live into a series of diagnoses. You know, you have an illness or a disease, you're not really a whole person anymore. We call that reductionist theory about healthcare. So I'm going to ask both of you to take some time and talk to me about your patient. I mean, I believe you said, Dana, most of your practice is women. Gio's expertise is in men. They come to you with problems, but you have a different approach to how that looks, right? So Dana, can you take that first?
So, looking at this audience, it's very indicative of my practice. It's probably about 10% men, 90% women, mostly adult women, and most of my practice is women in that perimenopause, menopausal phase. Just an aside, what's interesting is that those people now are bringing their children to see me, or their adolescents and above. I don't see pediatrics, but because we're looking now for prevention. But the person that comes to my office already has a problem. There's some either chronic illness, not feeling good, tired, fatigued, whatever, in menopause, hot flashing, can't think, can't sleep, and those are the things that they come and see me for. So I want to say something too, that if I have a 70-year-old patient, it's never too late to start preventative medicine. It's never too late, and in fact, the biggest changes I see are in the elderly population who are looking and ready and willing to make a change. It's remarkable at how quickly their body takes to it and makes those changes. So I see people who are interested, ready to make some changes, looking for advice and guidance on nutrition, and that's what they come to me for.
Thank you. Gia.
All right. Well, first of all, ooh, that's loud. I may not even need a microphone. Do you guys like the orange? Let's just start there. Is the orange okay with you? I figured that. maybe I should wear orange at Syracuse. Thank you for the invitation. Wonderful sharing the stage with my colleague, Dr. Cohen. Thank you for coming. My practice is 90% men and 10% women, exactly the opposite of Dr. Cohen's. I just took the road less traveled a long, long time ago, where I saw that men needed more help than women, because women live longer, typically. Men get diagnosed with cancers more often than women. Men die from cancers more often than women. Men die from heart attacks more often than women. So we need a lot of help. And so I decided a long time ago, maybe I should specialize in this area. Maybe all these holistic and naturopathic approaches, maybe we can all focus on male issues, and hopefully we can catch up to women and live long. Not only live long, live well. We're actually living a long time, but we're not living too well, right? So maybe you know somebody, for example, with Alzheimer's disease, right, who, they've had it for 10 years, but they've had Alzheimer's. They don't recognize their kids. So my goal, my passion, my research is on how can I help men and myself live longer, but also live better. So it's not unusual, for example, where I have a 68-year-old male in my office that we help them live better at 60. In other words, not decline as they age, but live better. The joke is always, invite me to your 70th birthday, and we're going to have a big celebration. Hopefully, and very likely, your 70th birthday, you'll be in better shape than when you were 60. And there's a lot of things that I could tell you, and one of the frequent questions that I get asked is, so why don't men take action? Why aren't they proactive as women and so forth? It's actually very simple. Men typically don't care to be healthy. They only care to perform. Perform at work. Perhaps perform in the bedroom. Although after a certain time, for some men, they're like, oh, okay, I'm done with that too. So they care to perform. And health, health is an ambiguous term, right? What does that really mean? If I ask each one of you, what does health mean? You all going to give me a different answer. Is it the absence of disease? Is it the ability to function well? Is it the ability of not to get a cold or a flu? Like, what does it mean? It's too ambiguous. So I think the opportunities that we have now in this day and age is, how can we be more precise? How can we be more prescriptive with our natural approaches? If we're going to exercise, what is the prescription? Not, hey, you need to exercise, your belly is too big. What does that mean, exercise? I mean, let's be more prescriptive. How much broccoli should I eat? Broccoli is one of the main, and that branch of foods, cruciferous vegetables. They're protective against prostate cancer. So, Brussels sprouts, broccoli, you want to eat, several servings a day of these things. If not, take it from a supplement. Could be very, very helpful. So that's that. The other thing is that, with regards to integrative and functional medicine and naturopathic medicine, we're in a healthcare crisis, right? 20% of our GDP is spent on medicine, on hospitals and illness and medical care, but we're not living better necessarily. The third leading cause in deaths is medically related, things that are caused by either overdosage of pharmaceuticals, surgical procedures, and things like that. Third leading cause in the United States. So I think that rather than looking at it as a gloom and doom situation, right, this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity to take the bull by the horn, live better, and live with intensity, with vigorousness, with vitality, and and that's it for now. I know you have a lot of questions for us. So
I do. So let's talk about this prescriptive concept. I show up at your office, Dana, and I'm exhibiting premenopause signs, and what is that like? What does that feel like? I mean, is this about food, diet, supplements? I mean, what is the prescription for that, for night sweats, for that lovely part of life?
Yeah,
journey?
well, in my practice, yes, it is. It's about food, it's about diet, it's about supplements, it's about lifestyle, it's about decreasing stress, it's about movement. all of those things we have to really look at in a person when we practice holistic medicine. We're looking at people from a whole, as opposed to giving them an Advil or a birth control pill to help with these signs. You know, birth control pills, I think it's a slippery slope, and I think that I'm not a proponent, and there are side effects, and we need to address those side effects and really look at what's happening with birth control pills and what we're doing to people, depression, decreased libido, and there's other things. So we want to take, the first step is always do no harm. So we want to look at their lifestyle. You want to look at their diets. We want to get sugar out of our diets. And then there's prescriptions. There's some natural herbal treatments that are very powerful. That are very powerful. And it takes somebody who knows herbs can be drugs and should be utilized as such. So it's important to seek out someone who knows what they're using and how to use it properly.
So I'm going to move to you.
Are you going to come to my office with a prostate problem?
No,
Yes,
but my
yes.
husband is.
Oh, okay, your husband, okay.
So I have been that journey. You know, I've been the conventional medical route with my spouse on prostate cancer, and I am so intrigued. And I bet there are people in the audience who are saying the same thing. I know that's the way to do it, but I can't have an effective impact on people because the doctor knows best, and once the doctor says it, it's God's law, and that means that all things, quote, natural can be ruled out very quickly. So
Right.
in your practice, I mean, first of all, I have an assumption or an assertion that men aren't as open to this as women are anyway, excluding those of you in the room. And I'm curious about how you work with the men first, and then their spouses, because your book is all about that.
Correct.
To do this in partnership, like we're talking about today.
Correct. Yeah, so, you know, you'd be surprised. More and more men are actually interested because they see what's happened to them when they're taking certain pharmaceuticals. They've had more side effects. They needed more drugs to help with those side effects, etc. They're also more, you know, they're vulnerable, right? And, you know, this is the main reason why men don't go to conventional doctors, because they don't want to be in a vulnerable situation, right? Men hate vulnerabilities to a fault sometimes. So but once they find out there's perhaps a credible naturopathic integrative practitioner, then they're more keen to seek that route. The other thing is that, you know, it's very important to understand that I never have a walking prostate come into my office. It's typically a man with a prostate that comes into my office. You know, Hippocrates once said, you know, I'm more interested in the man that has a disease rather than the disease a man has. Right? And that's exactly how it works. You know, with regards to prostate cancer, let's say a man gets diagnosed, they get it treated, right? Let's say they get a prostatectomy where the prostate is removed, or radiation. After that, there's still a 40% chance of that person getting a recurrence from their cancer, meaning their cancer has not gone away. And you scratch your head, and you say, why is that happening? That's happening because no one is taking care of the soil of the body. That's why. No one is taking care of the microenvironment. Because cancer is not, a guy with prostate cancer doesn't necessarily have just cancer in their prostate. It's their body is cancering. Why would I think that there's only cancer cells developing in the prostate and nowhere else? This is one whole system. So it's very important to treat the microenvironment. And there's a lot of things with regards to the microenvironment. You have to look at blood sugar levels. You have to look at testosterone and estrogen balance. People are saying, well, you know, testosterone can ignite and can put more fire into prostate cancer. This is totally not true. In fact, as men get older, they get more estrogen. They start making more estrogen in their bodies. Testosterone goes low. So we have to look at that. You know, one of the things, I looked at one of the studies not that long ago, and there's many ways of increasing testosterone naturally. But one of the ways is actually make sure you're rooting for the right team. What does that mean? They looked at two groups. They looked at two groups of fans, one for basketball, the other one for soccer. And they saw, and they took blood before the game, blood after, not blood, saliva actually. They tested testosterone through saliva before the game and after. They noticed that the fans whose team won had higher testosterone versus those fans whose teams lost. So I guess the message here is maybe you should stop watching Syracuse basketball.
You just lost him.
I just want to make sure you were paying attention. But it's true that there are numerous things to make sure that you monitor and you ask your doctor to monitor. Things like testosterone versus estrogen ratios. That has an effect not only on prostate cancer but prostate health. I mean, how many of you guys, you don't have to raise your hands because I don't think you want to disclose that, but you're getting up 2-3 times a night to urinate. So your quality of life is disturbed by all these issues that come along because you're aging. Well, we can slow down the aging process. You just need to know how and perhaps go to the right practitioner. How many of you, their heart attacks or heart disease or hypertension, these things can be managed. I can't tell you the amount of times I see older men who in their 60s and 70s who actually reverse a lot of these conditions. So the bottom line here is you need to be proactive and you can slow down the aging process. You just perhaps need to know how.
So the same would hold true for women in terms of quality of life issues and getting up numerous times at night and all of this relationship between those kinds of symptoms and long-term health, whether it's post-cancer, pre-cancer. I mean, what is your approach with women on that, Dana?
With women on what?
In terms of how they manage their symptoms and to achieve that health status and reverse some of these conditions, like from a female perspective.
Okay, female or male, there are some very basic things we need to understand and we need to take care of. The one that is most near and dear to my heart, and the one I believe is the mother of all epidemics, is low-grade dehydration. We need to hydrate ourselves properly, especially given these new environments. We're sitting under these lights. We have electronics all around us. So hydration is important. It's the basics. It's getting back to basics. Food. We need to eat real food. We can start to grow. Today on Earth Day, maybe consider planting one thing, a basil, so you can start using some basil. But we need to start eating real food, not packaged foods. So hydration, food, sleep. If you're not sleeping, you're not healthy. It's up there with food, water, and shelter. We need to sleep. And diet. We need to get rid of the sugar in our diet. It is my biggest thing, having worked for Dr. Atkins, having seen miracles every single day on a daily basis, simply by changing somebody's diet, and in a very quick time, getting sugar out of your diet will make a huge difference in your health.
Just out of curiosity, how do the two of you feel about organic packaged food, processed food?
Specifically what?
Think about
organic cookies.
Or organic mac and cheese.
Right. So crappy food, I'm sorry. Don't get me started. I can't even hold myself back here.
It's processed food.
So listen, crappy food is crappy food. You could have gluten-free crappy food. You could have organic crappy food. Crappy food is crappy food. You look at the ingredients, and if it's this big, then it's crappy food, right? Good food has 1 or 2 ingredients. An apple, it's an apple. Let me say this also. Organic apples, right? Where do they come from? Well, oftentimes they come from like other countries. So by the time it gets to your mouth, it's depleted in nutrients. It's depleted, even though it's organic. So you want more local foods. That's when people say, "Oh, supplementation. We don't need supplements. We could get everything from food." Oh, really? Can we? Yeah, if we eat everything locally, if everything you eat you grow, if you move a lot, if you get some sunshine, because sunbathing is actually to some degree or to a large degree very therapeutic. If you do all these things, then you don't need supplementation. So then, do you all do these things? Because I don't, right? I'm indoors most of the time, working. I eat the organic apple that probably has no nutrients, right? Although I do go to the farmer's market, but that is not widely available all the times, right? I do exercise, 30, 60 minutes a day. But studies show that you can exercise 60 minutes a day, but if you're sitting down for 12, all bets are off. You're still going to die sooner because you're still too sedentary, even if you exercise 60 minutes a day. So meaning evolutionarily, we have to move around a lot. But our lifestyle, because of what we have to do, because of many things, it's not that. So
I'm depressed.
crappy food is crap. Maybe you need some vitamin D, honey.
Crappy food is crappy food. So, okay, I exercise a lot, apparently not enough. I don't know how much water I need to drink, or really how much sleep I should have.
So let me ask Dr. Cohen a question, because she's actually the guru in hydration.
Yes.
Because your book is coming out.
Yes.
When?
Probably a year.
Oh, we have plenty of time. So tell me if I'm wrong, and maybe I got this wrong.
Okay.
But I believe that just water itself is not something that you should drink a lot. For example, if my patients eat a lot of fruits and vegetables, which is 80% water, maybe I don't have to drink 6 or 8 cups of water a day. Am I wrong?
I'm so proud of you. No, you're not wrong. That's exactly right. We actually need to stop drinking all this water. That drink half your weight in ounces, nobody knows where it came from, and it doesn't hold true. I know this. I remember I was sitting in the aha moment for me. I was sitting in Las Vegas at a conference, and they have these pitchers of water. So I'm in the desert under these lights, and I was drinking water all day long, so thirsty. I would go to the bathroom between every lecture, and I couldn't hydrate myself. So drinking water is not the answer, and you're depleting yourself of nutrients. So my rule of thumb, I like to say that an apple and a bottle of water is more hydrating than 2 bottles of water. So we need the fiber to push the water into our cells. And so food and water, smoothies. Smoothies, you should start your day with a really good smoothie with lots of good healthy oils like coconut oil in it, some greens, maybe some chia seeds. Chia seeds are coated in a gel-like substance. That gel, this is one of the new sciences, and this is really interesting. And in fact, Dr. Mercola posted a really big article about it. Gel has been discovered as the 4th phase of water. Think about that. We all know that water exists as ice and vapor and liquid, and now there's a 4th phase that's been discovered. It's gel, and most of the water in our body is in this gel form. It's very interesting.
How about a bottle of wine a day? How would that work out for us?
Not good.
No?
No?
Sorry.
Keep trying to work that wine in, resveratrol.
The
Right?
resveratrol. Oh, I guess I have to keep taking resveratrol.
All right, so
supplements
how
then.
much sleep do we really need? I mean, it's impossible to get 8 hours of sleep. Barely can get 7. I mean, what's going on here? People are up all night long. What's the secret to a good night's sleep?
That's a tough one. It's a really tough one. It's all of the things we mentioned. It's eating right, it's exercising, it's moving, it's hydrating. You have to do, and it's stress. You know, meditation for me was the missing link in my life. And it may not be meditation for you. It may be some form of yoga or breathing, or there's this new thing called heart math. I use it in my practice, and I'm getting really good results, which is basically a thing you buy online. It gives you biofeedback. So you have to figure out what the anti-stress component's going to be as well. And it's different for everybody. And if your doctor's not asking you about it, they're not doing their job.
So here's the deal. I like to give practical things to my patients, like do this one thing, and perhaps you'll sleep better. Because once we get to, you have to do this, that, 10 things, it becomes more overwhelming. So sleep, yes, important, of course. Who sleeps 8 hours a day? I don't know anybody in Manhattan that sleeps 6 hours a night, nonetheless 8 hours a night, for many, many reasons. I would say this, and I've looked at the research closely because sleep is very important. The quality of sleep is very important. I would argue that the quality of sleep is more important than the quantity of sleep. So you could sleep 9 hours a night and not be well rested. Why is that? Well, there's a couple of things that interfere with good quality sleep. If you have a heavy meal at night, before going to sleep, your body's working overtime. You could sleep 10 hours and you're still going to wake up tired. If you drink alcohol at night, you might notice that you snore more, or your partner may notice that you snore more at night. So there's certain things that interfere with good quality of sleep. The 2 main things are eating too much at night, too many carbohydrates at night. Some people wake up with a carbohydrate hangover in the morning. Drinking too much alcohol at night, it's another big interference. With regards to stress, If your mind is ruminating and you cannot, because you have 1,000 things going on like most of us do, the best thing you could do, the most important thing you can do is have a little notebook and write all your thoughts and your concerns and things that you don't want to forget down in that little notebook. Because what you want, the reason why you get up at 2 o'clock in the morning after going and peeing and then you staying up is because you don't want to forget the things that are important to do the next day. Well, write it down. Your brain is not made to remember things. Your brain is made to think. Your book, your little notebook, that's how you remember things. So write things down on paper, and I can guarantee you that alone and not eating too much before bedtime or drinking too much, your sleep will improve dramatically.
Can I just, so a couple things. There's actually scientific literature on journaling for pain, which I thought was really interesting, and there's many studies about it. Journaling is a really great tool. Yeah. The other thing, just a little bit on the flip side, if you have, I think one of the most underlooked causes of problem sleeping is hypo or low blood sugar. So in actuality, a fatty snack right before bed may help you sleep longer throughout the night. So fat stabilizes sugar. You may consider even a spoonful of a nut butter before you go to bed could really maintain your blood sugar throughout the night.
Oh, fascinating. I'm going to dive into one more topic here.
Can I say something else about sleep? I have to say this. Is it
Say
okay?
it.
So for guys specifically, and women, you may know this, you may not, I don't know. But men get between 3 and 5 erections every night during their sleep cycle. From the time they're 13 to the time they're either dead or the time that their prostate is removed, where there's nerve damage done where they cannot get an erection. So that's what happens. The penis is the barometer to a man's body. Is that okay to say on Facebook? I mean, it's penis. I'm not saying it, right? Is that okay?
It's a medical term.
It's a medical term and is an anatomical structure. The penis is the barometer to a man's health and a man's body. Men who wake up with erections and they actually wake up with one, that doesn't mean if you don't wake up with one that you never had one. You did, at least 3 times. But if you wake up with one every other day, every third day, that's significant of you actually getting into REM sleep and you having restful sleep. Because you can only get an erection during that phase of REM sleep. That's that restful phase. Okay? So that's a quick takeaway. So now I see all these men looking every morning like, oh, God, I had horrible sleep. Jeez. My goodness. Gotta sleep better.
Oh, let's talk about mental acuity. I don't think there's a person in the room anymore. We used to say this with cancer, that doesn't have somebody that's been affected by cancer. I would hazard to guess that everybody in this room has someone that's been affected by some sort of dementia kinds of issue in their family. And all of us think that there must be something we can do to stave that off, even though we're led to believe that it's an inevitable thing and it's going to be an epidemic for this coming generation.
So you may or may not have heard this, but Alzheimer's is now known as type 3 diabetes. Yeah, I'm preaching to the choir here. So once again, we got to get the processed foods and the simple carbohydrates and the simple sugars out of our diets. I think if that's the single most important thing that we can do to stave off dementia. There are some nutrients and supplements that we should and can be using, and there's very well researched things like vitamin E, even ginkgo, fish oil, important.
Yeah, so a study just came out recently in The Lancet. The Lancet is one of the top journals, showing, and then there was an article on Time magazine, that for the last 30 years, they've looked at 200 drugs that failed for Alzheimer's prevention. 200 drugs that failed. The thing that works best, guess what? It's lifestyle. Lifestyle. Low carbohydrate diets and a lot of movement. Perhaps vitamin D. Other studies didn't say that, but other studies have said vitamin D and things like that. Actually, selenium. Selenium is one. By the way, selenium is one of the. I keep jumping around, but I'll bring it home. Trust me. Selenium is one of the most important minerals one of the most overlooked minerals that one can take. Is selenium. It has so many beneficial functions against reducing the risk against cancer, for male fertility. There are a lot of guys. 50% of men when a couple goes to try to have babies, they think it's 80, 90% women. No, it's 50% men. So the sperm cells are, they either they don't produce enough, or they look retarded with 3 heads or something. Selenium is one of the most important minerals for male fertility, for cardiovascular disease. So, and cognition as well. One of the main, I think a lot of this is just getting started. All right, what lifestyle? I mean, what are you talking about? So I'm not going to have my burger and fries and beer? Broccoli? What are you talking about? Exercise? I can tell you this. If you don't make lifestyle a integral part of your life and a must, it has to be a must. Not that I should, because you all do that. I know. I should work out tomorrow morning. If it's not should, you'll be shoulding all over yourself. It has to be an I must. And I must. And if you don't spend the time on that, you will spend time either, God forbid, in a coffin or with very bad health as you get older. Because our modern medicine will keep you alive. It's very good at that. But you and I both know that you want quality. You want to perform well as you get older. So you need to put the time in.
Oh, I just want to say something about that. Exercise doesn't mean 60 minutes every single day. But we need to move. We need to move all of our limbs. It could be simple stretching every day, moving our fascia, literally lubricating our joints. And maybe just once a week doing something called interval training, burst training, where you get your heart rate going for a half an hour once a week, and you go full out, but in intervals. So you do 30 seconds of something, 90% of your effort, and then take a break for 90 seconds, and do that for a bunch of reps. There's lots of information about that kind of exercise, which I think everybody can do. But if the most important thing is moving. It doesn't necessarily have to be 60 minutes of cardio every single day.
I would argue that 60 minutes of cardio is probably what you should not do. It would be my argument. Why? Because I see a lot of marathon runners that do New York City Marathon, Boston Marathon as they get older, and they're saying, hey, I'm very active. I run marathons. Well, their health is a disaster oftentimes, and you wonder why. These guys are so active. 2 reasons. One is because they feel, because they run so much, that they have the license to eat crappy food. And that's never the case, particularly as you get older. Because you do so much, you need better food. So that's number 1. Number 2 is because running excessively is catabolic, meaning that it breaks down muscle. That's not what you want as you get older. As you get older, you want anabolic. You want to build muscle. So, and studies show that people that are stronger live longer. Stronger people, so you need to do more catabolic, more resistance, more anabolic, thank you. More anabolic exercises and things that are more resisting muscles and stressing muscles. Osteoporosis, you think, oh, that's a woman's disease. Nope. Men too. Guess what? A lot of men die from fractures of their bones. How so? People don't die from fracturing their bones. Well, you know that as you get older, you have to pee more at night. So in the middle of the night, things are dark. You break a leg or something, and then you hit your head against something and you die. That's a significant type of how men die as they get older, from falls, from soft bones and fractured bones where they hit their head and they die. So, and the best way to prevent that, and a plethora of things, is through weight-resistant exercise. And you can combine both. I just want to throw that seed in your head, do your research, and make it happen. It's very important.
My theory is that yoga and lifting my weight is as much as I ever need to lift.
Or
it's weight resistance, absolutely.
Even Tai Chi is a really underutilized tool. I don't know if there's any Tai Chi classes out here, but if you're looking for a prescription, go find a Tai Chi class. It's incredible. It's not easy. It looks easy. It's not, but it's really good for you.
Back to selenium. My understanding is you can't get selenium from food anymore. Like it's in walnut shells and Brazil nuts.
So selenium. So I mean, again, you look at our food and it's depleted in nutrients. So I'm not suggesting not to eat well. Eat well is very important. Actually, I'm not suggesting not only not to eat well. I'm suggesting eat well, but I'm also suggesting, hey, when should you not eat? right? Because there's a lot of evidence showing that intermittent fasting actually helps you live longer. Okay, back to selenium. I promise. I'll stay on.
No, I lost 35 pounds with intermittent fasting.
Absolutely. You lose weight.
It feels good.
You feel good, and you live longer. You live longer. So intermittent fasting, so you may or may not know, intermittent fasting is not eating for a period of time. It could be 12 hours a day, or it could be 16 hours. Everybody is a different system. There's the system of eat 5 days, don't eat for 2. There's different types of intermittent fasting, different ways of doing it. Bottom line is, at least 12 hours a day, do not eat. Most of that time you should be sleeping anyway. So if you stop eating at 8 p.m., don't start eating to 8 a.m. or 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., whatever. That's minimum. All right, selenium.
Selenium, because we're going to go into nutrients.
Selenium.
We're going to do a serious plug for organic and natural health on that.
So Brazil nuts has a lot of selenium in it. So about 4 Brazil nuts yield you, 3 to 4, yield you around 200 micrograms of selenium, which is pretty much what you need. The issue is that I just don't see anybody eating Brazil nuts. Right?
Don't like them.
Don't like them, too big, too this, too that. So this is why, again, we need supplementation. With regards to selenium, I have to say this. Form matters. Form matters. What does that mean? That means that there's different types of selenium in the market, and I certainly looked at the research and believe that the selenium that comes from the yeast form, selenium yeast, is the better one for you, particularly for men, as they've looked at different cancers, including prostate cancer. Landmark study that came out in JAMA in the late 90s showing that it was a 63% reduction in prostate cancer in men who took this selenized yeast. So selenized yeast is the one, and the reason for that is because it's more food-like. We get into trouble with supplementation when we try to overly concentrate nutrients, because then it's unnatural, right? It's like vitamin E and all these supplements with alpha tocopherol. Well, it's not just alpha tocopherol, it's mixed tocopherols, right? Higher in gamma, so when you get from eat food, you eat high gamma tocopherols. So then when they say vitamin E is bad, no, it's not vitamin E is bad, alpha tocopherol is bad. Same thing with selenium. So selenized yeast has 3 different forms of yeast, of selenium in it. One of them does include selenomethionine. So what you find in some supplements is just selenomethionine. Well, that's a problem. That's a very concentrated version. In selenized yeast, again, more food-like, there's different forms of selenium, and it seems like it works synergistically. Takeaway message, when taking selenium, you want the selenized yeast form.
Thanks, that's very helpful. Now, Dana, I'm going to go back to, we know that, upwards of 75% of the population is deficient in vitamin D. How many people in the room know their vitamin D levels? How many people's levels are between 40 and 60 nanograms per milliliter?
Good.
That's great.
Yeah.
How many of you know your omega-3 levels? Oh, that's because nobody's testing them. So one of the things that Organic and Natural Health is doing is a Power of Nutrients campaign, and we've packaged together, we're working with a group called Grassroots Health. Thousands of people are participating in these studies that are basically crowdsourced. So you get to monitor your levels of these 2 nutrients, and the researchers take that information and they've created an amazing database of why you should take vitamin D, which will be available for anyone who wants to participate today. But Dana, it leads me to the whole vitamin D immune system, how we actually can manage our nutrient load to prevent some of these issues that we're talking about, and does that start with an immune system, and what does that look like for supplementation?
Well, yeah, so there are a few things that I give patients, automatically when they walk in the door to my practice. The first is vitamin D, but I do measure vitamin D levels. By the way, we can measure selenium levels in patients.
Absolutely.
So it's important to see a functional or integrative doctor where you can get this information. Omega-3s, we can measure, but now you can measure on your own through this campaign. I think it's important. I have patients that come in and say, oh, but I eat salmon 5 times a week. I know my levels are going to be fine. I measure their omega-3 fatty acid levels, and they're not. Their EPA and their DHA are very low. They need to supplement. So we have a question.
97.5% of the world population is deficient in omega-3. That includes me.
97. Yeah.
97?
Yeah. Do you have a question? Yeah. Yeah. So important to seek out doctors who are looking at nutrition factors, and there's one here in Syracuse, Michael McGrath.
By the way, and the other thing is that there are people, I get patients all the time every now and then, hey, I'm a purist. I want everything completely natural. Okay, so then walk around the city on a sunny day half naked. And that's how you're going to get a lot of vitamin D production in your body. If not, then we need to supplement. You know, we have to be holistic but realistic is what it comes down to. Yeah, it would be nice for us to get everything absolutely natural, but that's not how the world works. And this is why, you know, the right supplement combination for the right person is absolutely critical for one to live functionally and longer as one gets older.
All right, so that's a lot of information. I want you to both give me the perfect trifecta of what I need to do every day, because I think my 2 hands are now full of supplements.
You have to have a lot of sex every single day. I'm telling you right now. I mean, that is numero uno.
Next.
No.
You need to be well hydrated, you need to move, and you need to eat real food. As far as supplementation, there are certain things. So it depends. Everybody's an individual. It really depends. I'm not one to prescribe 1,000 supplements to somebody. However, if somebody comes into my practice, depending on what they're complaining of, I'm going to look to nutrients first. Our bodies are amazing machines, and if we give it what it needs to do its job, it does incredible things, better than we really even know. There's so many things we just don't even know. So let's. You want to talk about immunity?
Yeah, let's talk about immunity.
All right. So I have quite a bit of an elderly population, and the population that comes in to see me, I have to twist their arm if I need them to take an antibiotic. Most of my patients are very well educated. They don't want any medications. They only want supplements, and if they have a rip-roaring infection, I have to beg them to take the antibiotic when they absolutely need it. And I have patients that they know they're not going to come in and they're going to get a prescription. That's not how my practice works. So, with that being said, I also have patients that don't come in for flu shots. I don't believe in the flu shot, and I think there's enough literature to support that, especially in healthcare workers. There's the Cochrane reviews that talk about the flu shot, and it doesn't do what it said it's supposed to do. So, how do we prevent the flu? That is a big thing in my practice. I have a fairly elderly population. I also have a population of workers who can't miss work. Now, the one thing I want to say is that it's actually really good to get the flu every 7 years or so. It jumpstarts your immune system. It's what our bodies are meant to do. It gives us better immunity afterwards. So if I got the flu a couple years ago and I was like, thank you, I'll take it. As far as supplementation for the flu, we all know about vitamin C. I do some intravenous vitamin C, oral vitamin C. There's only so much you can take. If I had to give you one bang for your buck, there's a medicinal mushroom called AHCC. They actually have a booth here. AHCC is a mixture of medicinal mushrooms. It's the largest immune-boosting supplement in Japan. It's actually used in hospitals there for cancer patients, but that's what I would say. During flu season, take this supplement. It's an immunomodulator, so it increases natural killer cells. It increases your immunity when you need it, but it also calms your immune system when you need it. That, to me, is probably the one, like my biggest supplementation that I use for cold and flu. What else? Vitamin D. The other thing we didn't talk about is vitamin K2. Vitamin K2 is another nutrient that 97% of the whole population is deficient in. We can't get it. We can't eat it. You have to eat something like 8 pounds of beef a day to get enough vitamin K2. and we don't have good ways of measuring it either. So I empirically give patients vitamin K2 as soon as they walk in the door. What it does is it pulls calcium from our arteries and puts it into our bones where we need it. Think about that. So a few years ago, we were scared about calcium. Should I be taking calcium? It's bad for my heart. Vitamin K2 is the missing link. We need it to get that calcium out of the arteries where we don't want it and put it into our bones. So anybody with osteoporosis. But now I just empirically give my vitamin D with vitamin K too.
Got anything to add, Gio?
Well, I didn't answer the question of what are the 3 things to do to live. Maybe I threw you off with a sex comment. I apologize.
I
didn't
think
know
you
that
might
would throw
have.
you off. You know, that was part of the movement part, movement. I should have said movement. In any event, 3 things that I would say men, but perhaps is not gender specific, need to do. Certainly movement, but I'll be even more precise. Weight resistant movement. You have to stimulate muscles. You have not only your heart muscle, but every muscle. The more muscles you stimulate, the better you'll do. That's number 1. Number 2, eating correctly and not eating correctly. Meaning, eating correctly, half of your plate, vegetables. The other half, mostly proteins, fish, and very little carbohydrates. You'll do better with the less carbohydrates you eat. Yes, they're more addictive. When you have a stressful day, you don't want a bowl of broccoli, you want bread, cookies, and things like that. I get it, but it screws you up in the long run. So less carbohydrates, don't eat often, do intermittent fasting, and eat half your plate with vegetables. The third thing is the right supplement combination for you. And one of the best ways to determine that is through blood tests and different tests that an integrative or functional medicine doctor can provide. Things like selenium, for example, it's one of my top minerals. Magnesium, very important. Vitamin D, fish oils, those are critical. The 5th one I would add to that list, and by the way, I'm a big fan of medicinal mushrooms and AHCC as well. I use it in my practice all the time. They're just, particularly during flu season, I see most people don't get flus or colds, although you're right, it's great to have a flu and you have you have an excuse to lay down in bed for three days, hopefully. So that's, but AHCC is great, medicinal mushrooms, and I like curcumin a lot. Curcumin is a chemical from turmeric that has a lot of great properties, anti-inflammatory and even anti-cancer. So I think most men, particularly most people perhaps, as they get older, they should include curcumin in a supplementation intake list.
You know, I have read that having sex actually creates
you
new cells.
You couldn't get that out of your brain, huh? I saw you,
Yeah.
Karen.
Yeah.
So having sex, what have you read?
Like makes you shed old cells and grow new ones.
Absolutely. You know, for men specifically, men make more testosterone the more sex they have. You know, I write it in a prescription pad all the time for my patients. Like more arrow moving upward, sex.
Cool.
I'm just a messenger. This is the literature that I've read.
Absolutely.
So this is what it is. I'm just a messenger.
Yeah, exactly. So I, as a lay person, have learned a lot over the years about some of these issues. And I'm going to put a plug in for the American Grass-Fed Association, who's got a new standard for grass-fed beef. That you look for their logo, because the standards for grass-fed beef are really sketchy. And they've got a great logo, and that's what you want to eat is grass-fed. And as my friend Carrie Balcom, who runs that association, says, you're not supposed to be able to cut your steak with a fork. So for those of you who think that grass-fed beef is not tender enough. That aside, I know that when I open my mouth and speak, some of my family members choose not to pay any attention whatsoever. And you guys are such good coaches. I mean, I think from what I can tell, 50% of your practice is really just coaching people on how to do this. And for those of us who have loved ones or family members who are in nursing homes, or what about that commercial that's on TV now with 12, 13, 15-year-old kids who say, I'm at high risk for diabetes, I'm at high risk for sickle cell, I'm at high risk, but my health can be maintained by my doctor and medicines. How do we empower ourselves to be ambassadors for the work that you're doing and not turn people off and get them in to see you.
So I guess I'll take that question first. There's a lot of things. You know, it's such a psychological aspect of the whole scenario. People want instant gratification, right? We're all guilty of that. That's why we overdrink. That's why we eat bad foods, because it makes us feel good now. Eating well and exercising will make us feel good tomorrow. Eating bad foods helps us feel good now. So we want instant gratification. We're kind of wired for that. That's number one. Number two, I think that as I observe a lot of my patients and people in my social media community, those that take action versus those that don't, I got to tell you, there's one. I've concluded one thing, and I don't want to oversimplify this because there's a lot, but I concluded one thing. The people have to continuously have an immense amount of whys to take action. In other words, it's not about what should I do. The better question is, why should I even do it? And of course, you're going to say, oh, well, you know, I want to live longer. And that's ambiguous. Oh, I want to walk my daughter down the aisle. That's ambiguous. The more specific one can be with why they want to do it, the more committed they'll be to the lifestyle changes that they need to make. Right? So my whys, every time I pick up my cell phone, right, there's a picture of 3 kids that are mine that I'm constantly reminded why I'm going to move more and not choose the burger all the time, although sometimes, and not, do the right thing, take my, supplementation. Oh, doc, I keep forgetting to take the supplement. Are you kidding me? I keep forgetting? That's because it's not a priority in your life yet. And it has to be a priority. You don't take action because it's not the most important thing in your life, at least yet. It should be, but other things are priorities. So you need a big why, and that big why needs to be in your head all the time, if not written down, with a picture or written down, so that you say, you know what, I am going to the gym for 45 minutes or whatever. So, and then the other thing is not to, you never win by preaching to your husband and tell him, listen, stop eating those donuts, eat Brussels sprouts. He's going to look at you like you have 3 heads, right? Men don't like that kind of situation of being told what to do to begin with. So what you do is you lead by example. You lead by example, and you lead with love, and you say, hey, I want you in my life a lot longer than what I think you'll live. So let's take action together so that we can live longer and better.
It's interesting. I often say this to my patients who walk in. On their very first visit, I put patients on a 3-week detox. So, meaning there's an elimination diet where they have to go gluten-free, dairy-free, no soy, no sugar, and it's a whole to-do. And I tell them, if you leave here and say, I never want to see her again, she's crazy, and that's the one thing you do, it is life-changing. And it's life-changing in a very, very quick period of time. I think if you took 100 people and put them on a gluten-free diet, probably 90 of them will feel unbelievably better. So it is actually quicker than you think. Right. It really is. So, I think trying some dietary changes, but you need to also be, we're all cut off from our bodies. You need to get into your body and really acknowledge how you feel. And once you do that, your body will tell you what it needs, diet-wise especially.
So in our last few minutes, I want to let you all know, I hear this often when we do these kinds of panels. How do I find you? Where is this doctor that can make these changes in my life? Where's the doctor for my mother who's in Missouri and I'm not there to be able to do this, right? So we have a list of URLs of organizations that have a lot of trained practitioners in this area. And if you guys would just spend a minute talking about your training, because it's unique to each of you, and also what it's like to have a visit in your office, like just kind of walk us through. Is it 10 minutes, which we know it's not? And then we'll go straight to the audience for some questions.
So I'm somebody who was trained conventionally. I actually did my I did my residency at Albany Med, and I saw an ad that said world-renowned wellness center in New York City is looking for a doctor, and I was like, oh, that sounds really cool. So I went and looked at the ad, and it was to work with Dr. Atkins, who at the time had the biggest selling diet book in the world. And I was like, you know what, I'm interested. I'm going to check this out. I don't particularly come from a healthy family. My father was diabetic. My mother died of Alzheimer's when I was still in residency. And I worked for him. And in the first 6 months, I fought him on everything. However, I fought him on everything. But when I started to see the changes that took place in patients, even just by changing their diets, something clicked. And I literally saw miracles on a daily basis. So from there, I became active in an organization called ACAM, the American College for the Advancement of Medicine, which trains like-minded physicians in integrative medicine. It's been around for 40 years. You can go to their website and search for like-minded doctors. It's acam.org. So,
yeah. So, ooh, hey, yeah, okay. So ACAM is fantastic. There are two other organizations that are also good, credible, so that if you put your name and your zip code, doctors will come up. The other one is AAMP, or naturopathic.org, for naturopathic doctors. Okay, is .org, not .com. And the second one is the Institute of Functional Medicine, or IFM. I think is, just Google Institute of Functional Medicine. Functionalmedicine.org?
It'll be on the
Is that what it
slide.
is?
They'll see it on the slide.
Oh, they'll see it on the slide. Great. So those are the three main institutions that I can think of that will give you credible people that are doing this great line of work.
How long is your first visit?
So typically, you're there for about 2 hours. I spend an hour with the patient initially, taking a history and a physical. It's often what I say, what makes me integrative or holistic is that I listen to patients, and I'm gifted the time to do that. So your first patient's an hour, your second visit is about 45 minutes, where you go over all the testing that we did. I like testing, I like data. By the way, supplementation, when I prescribe supplements, they're very well studied. The AHCC happens to have more human studies than any supplement I know of. So there's a method to our madness of what we're doing.
Absolutely. It's all science-based for the most part. Hour and a half a first visit, hour and a half second visit. There's this whole, how can your doctor get to know you? How can they get to know about your disease or the disease that specifically that you have? Because, enlargement of the prostate from one guy is different than the other. And so then 10, 15-minute visits just don't work. So it's always an hour and a half first visit, an hour and a half second visit, 6 weeks later after the first initial visit.
And like I said, if you stick around and you watch the slides, they'll be going all day long. In between sessions, you'll be able to take a snapshot of that list of URLs. So we've got some time for questions. Does anybody have one?
You guys brought up selenium a lot, which I think is awesome. But, oh my gosh, what do you guys think about supplementation with herbs such as horsetail? Can you delve into that a little bit? Should we be careful with that? Maybe in older age. I'm younger, so maybe I don't have to focus on that as much.
Yeah.
Can you delve into that with herbal supplementation for selenium or some of the things you guys talked about?
So I said it before, I'll say it again. Herbs are drugs and should be used as such. I'm actually not an herbalist. I know Gio, as a naturopathic doctor, has had a lot of training in herbs. I've had none, zero in medical school. I actually use very few herbs in my practice. The ones I use, I know very well. So maybe you can...
Horsetail, great. See, it has to be individualized. Like Dana said, herbs are drugs. Now, they're not super concentrated. They have a lot of chemicals, and if the right doctor, herbalist would know exactly what they're doing. So horsetail is fine. It's actually great for the urinary system. In some people, it helps as a diuretic as well. It's a very good herb. It really depends on why you're taking it and if you really need it. It has to be prescribed the right way, just like any other drug. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, how it works.
Hi, great to talk to both of you and hear you talk.
Thank you.
My question, we touched on it a little bit, is Alzheimer's. Once a person is in that disease process, is there anything, supplement-wise? I'm here as a caregiver. I'm here with a family member of someone. How would you suggest we go about pruning down this person's list of supplements? What would you suggest?
So I don't treat a lot of Alzheimer's, but some of the things I can suggest is actually, it's interesting. The medicinal mushroom I was talking about earlier, they have a product called Cognisol. They have a booth over here, Quality of Life Labs, that has been shown to sort of delay the progression of Alzheimer's. And I think there's some very interesting research behind it. Cognisol by Quality of Life Labs. I think, healthy fats for our brains need fat. So things like coconut oil, putting them in smoothies, doing avocado and ghee, which is like clarified butter. Our brain needs fats, and in those states we need more than ever. So those are two good things to do, and getting rid of the sugar. It's never too late.
Yeah, our brains are fat. Not only do they need fat, our brain, if somebody tells you, hey, you're a fat brain, compliment them. Thank you very much for that compliment. So yeah, right along those lines, I treat a handful of Alzheimer's because and particularly the more advanced the case, the more difficult it is to treat, I have to say. This is why, of course, we're huge proponents of prevention. Prevention is the best medicine. Let's not get there to begin with. But once already somebody has the disease like Alzheimer's, I think there's a lot of things you can do, all these things that Dr. Cohen mentioned, that can slow the progression of the disease. And there's a lot of components. Look, my high school football coach, who was like a second father, developed Alzheimer's like 5 years ago. And it's disheartening. So I've been helping their family with things to do. It seems like he's slowed down the process, but certainly hasn't cured yet. And it's a whole, Alzheimer's is not a disease for that person. It affects the whole family, just like cancer. So it's a lot. It could be very complicated. What I would say is slowing down the progression would include a lot of fat in the diet and very little carbohydrates.
Actually, a ketogenic diet is, I think Dr. Mercola is going to be talking about it this afternoon. It's not easy, it's totally doable, and it's worth trying. A ketogenic diet is basically zero carbohydrates, tons of healthy fat, and good protein. Worth looking into.
I would like to hear what you have to say about probiotics.
You want to go? Yeah, go ahead.
So also one of the things that as soon as a person walks into my office, one of the things they're going to get right off the bat, immune modulating. So we have our immune system in our gut, and it takes on a whole. We barely even touched upon any GI stuff, but truthfully, I think that's what we all do in our practice. We work. Any holistic doctor, they're going to say to you, disease stems from the gut, and if your gut's not healthy, you're not healthy. So probiotics, I am a big proponent. There is a ton of garbage out there, and then there's some really good, there's a bunch of ones I use in my practice. We don't know what the exact dosage should be, and I think where we're all going, and correct me, is we're switching them out. So good healthy bacteria. Every couple months you want to change your probiotic, you want to change the ratio of the different bacteria, because we don't know what the perfect combination is. But I am a big proponent of probiotics.
So let me say this. The first thing is to reduce your consumption, when possible, of antibiotics. I think antibiotics is the most overlooked toxic pharmaceutical that exists. Okay? Not only are we creating microorganisms that are becoming resistant, but they're clearing out all our good bacteria and flora from our system. This is not the holistic guy saying that because I'm biased. This is exactly what the literature shows. You know, I'm at NYU in the city, part of the Department of Urology, and two of the biggest researchers on this microflora scenario is, you know, they're there. Martin Blazer, who wrote the Missing Microbe book. And we constantly have these type of conversations. So and he's a PhD scientist. So one of the things is, you know, you don't always need an antibiotic. My patients that get prostatitis, they don't need antibiotics more often than not, for example. That's number one. Number two is cultured foods, things like cabbage, like raw cabbage and things of the sort. You know, kefir is fine. I know that it's dairy, and some people have dairy allergies, but I use kefir with my family, with patients, and they do just fine. In terms of supplementation, like Dr. Cohen said, there's a lot of companies and there's no head-to-head studies, which is better, is a little bit complicated. Do I take probiotics? Yes. Do I recommend it? Yes. To be honest, I do so many things, I don't know exactly what's working, so I can't say, hey, this is the one. This is the best one that's been proven to work. I don't know that. I don't know that.
And just really quickly, prebiotics, things that help your body make its own good bacteria. So things like fiber, inulin is a natural fiber that's found in artichoke. Those and then fermented foods. Really, there's cookbooks out there that can teach you. You know, it doesn't have to be kefir; it can just be fermented foods, and it's definitely an acquired taste. But play around with it; they're really good for you.
Dr. Mercola's got the coolest fermentation toy over here. You can do it yourself, and it doesn't get stinky or anything. You should check it out. Are there shelf-stable probiotics that aren't in the refrigerator section?
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, when you look at the expiration of a shelf of a probiotic that doesn't have to be refrigerated, it says expired 2 years from now. What that means is that probiotic has been proven to have, guaranteed to have that many colony-forming units of that bacteria at that time of expiration. So it doesn't have to be refrigerated. If you refrigerate them, it's probably going to last even longer than that. But it doesn't have to be a refrigerated form of a probiotic in order for it to be good. One more is back there.
What are your best recommendations for a person with a fish allergy in terms of getting omega-3s, and would you suggest testing for conversion since you can't go?
Good question. Do you want to take that one?
Fish allergies.
So there is an algae-based omega-3 supplement. It's probably a little more expensive than fish oil, and I mean, I think maybe if it's a real problem and you've had your omega-3s tested and they're low, then you may want to go to an allergist and have them test you. You know, the purified fish oil you may not be sensitive to at all, but I wouldn't test it on your own because I just don't know. But there is definitely an algae-based
krill
omega-3.
Would that count?
No,
still
krill
fish.
is, yeah,
Still fish.
Yeah.
Tried.
Yeah. Good
Facebook
question.
friends would
Yeah.
like to know brands
This lady has
of
a question.
probiotics that you recommend.
I have at least 6 different brands that I carry in my practice. We're allowed to say this, yes, this is not CME. So I use orthomolecular products. I use Metagenics. I use Quality of Life Labs. They have a product called Bifalon. They also, you know, I think where probiotics are going, they're targeting them to the disease also, which is very interesting research that's being done on probiotics. So there's different probiotics for different diseases. It's not quite there yet, but that's where they're going.
Yeah, you know, I use Designs for Health, Douglas Labs probiotic. And I use actually one that is over the counter, and that's found in retail stores. I'm sure Nature's Time has it. Is Naturance actually? Naturance is very interesting because that's all they do. Very expensive product, but they have good research with their product, and it does have to be refrigerated.
I'm very concerned about Fukushima radiation. Now we're talking about Pacific cod, flounder, salmon, oil, and I know there's the IFOS that test for radiation. What do you recommend to avoid being irradiated by different kinds of supplements, and what do you recommend for people to protect their bodies now?
So do you mean supplements that come in from the States have to be irradiated before we use them?
No. I mean things that are contaminated that we might be taking as supplements or foods like Pacific salmon. I have a question about that as much as I love it. So I'm concerned about it.
So one of the reasons why, I use some of the organizations that I use, Standard Process, I've been to their farm in Wisconsin. I know what goes on there. Some of these companies, it's a very good question, and it's definitely a problem. I think I've spoken, the companies that I use, I know are safe. Once again, there's a lot out there that is not safe, and specifically, even the mercury in fish oil and those kind of things. Yeah, it's a tough question. I think I've spent many hours doing the research behind the supplements that I recommend in my practice.
The second part of that question is, what do you recommend for your patients to do to protect themselves from the radiation that's coming through the atmosphere?
Yeah, well, again, we live in a highly toxic world and in a very unnatural environment, right? But our bodies are supposed to do right by us if we do right by it, right? So we are exposed to tons of carcinogens that we have no idea about. So the more we do, the more of these type of guidelines that we recommended earlier, the lifestyle we do, the more of the good type of quality of supplements we take, the more our cells are protected from the onslaught that's coming from our environment, right? So this is why it's so crucial and critical to take action and do the right things in terms of dietary, lifestyle, and supplementation so that your cells are protected and very likely just significantly reduce your risk of disease.
It all comes back down to basics. Once again, sleep, drink, eat, move.
Sex.
And sex.
Thank you.
That's the movement. So better to eat smaller fish, I understand, sardines, less likely to accumulate mercury, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
And Vital Choice Seafood, great source of really quality
Yeah, I'll plug
fish.
Vital Choice. Those
Any
guys
day.
are amazing.
They are
Vital
amazing.
Choice, they are very the most responsible seafood organization that I know. Their stuff is so clean, tasty, oily. You could eat it raw as the most amazing fish you could ever get.
It's
so Vital
wonderful.
Choice is the way to go.
And I personally will never eat salmon from the east.
From the Atlantic salmon.
Atlantic salmon, not good.
How do you treat your patients with gut pathogens like SIBO or Candida? Do you prefer to treat it dietarily first before going to antibiotics? How would you, probiotics?
Yeah.
What do you?
So once again, it depends on the patient. If I have a patient that comes in and I get the history from her and I know that she has been suffering from Candida for many years, and I do test for everybody first, so I'll test. Often I'll put them on an antifungal medication right off the bat, along with, Candida needs to be starved to death, so you put them on a sugar-free, low-carb diet. You kill the yeast, whether you kill it naturally or with an antibiotic. It really depends on the patient, how sick they are. So not everybody's going to get an antifungal from me, and not everybody can handle an antifungal too. If they're so toxic, they may not be able to handle it. So everybody's different. And then SIBO too. SIBO's a very interesting new, it's been around for a long time, but I think it's been very underdiagnosed. And now we have a really good way of testing for it, so we're treating it more and more. It's not easy to treat. SIBO stands for small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. I often use a medication first, once again, depending on how sick they are. And I think most of the people that come to see me are seeing me for a reason. They're suffering.
Yeah, so I don't have the licensure to prescribe meds, so I have to figure out how to do things naturally, or then I'm in trouble. I don't make a living. So, I use certain botanicals very successfully. I think some of these botanicals are extremely strong to kill the things that we want to kill in our system. Things like oregano oil and wormwood and Paul Diarco. They are strong botanicals that are antimicrobial. And I use them extremely successfully in that scenario.
Yeah, I just want to say too, I'm starting to learn, as we all are, that patients are doing really well with SIBO being treated naturally. So that is a definite option, and I may change that practice and not. The medication to treat SIBO is astronomically expensive, $1,800 for the course, and often it's not covered by insurance. So I think that's going to change a little bit in my practice, and I may reach out to some naturals a little bit first.
That's going to close the session for today. We're a little bit over time. I just want to offer both Dr. Cohen and Espinosa a very warm thank you for what I thought was an amazing conversation. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
Can we let them know our websites or anything? Maybe they're
please
interested.
do, yeah.
So my website, I'm a blogger, so a lot of these things I actually write about and do videos and crazy things. It's drgeo.com. That's Geo with an E. So that you can remember it is Geo with an E for erections. drgeo.com.
I'm Dr. Dana Cohen, Cohen.com.
Thank you
Thank
very
you
much.
all. You guys were great. Thank you very much for coming. I appreciate you.
Antibiotics, which I agree with you. So what would you take instead if you were sick?
It depends what kind of sickness.
Say you got the bug.
If you got the bug, you let your body do what it's supposed to do. You do immunostimulatory things. Yeah, let's step down.